tuning into another episode of King Crush Thursdays, where we highlight and uplift Black men, because frankly, not a lot of people are doing it. And so we want to create a community where we are showing our brothers love, where we are having a better conversation, a better understanding of them. This format is the same 6 questions are asked of every brother who comes onto this show. Our brothers are from basically all sectors of our industry. They are all successful. And I define success as a man who is living his life fully, who is living out his purpose, living out who he is. And it doesn't matter what he does for a living, but what does matter is how he is for a living and how he is living. And so I'm really excited that today's installment will be with my friend Isaac Ewell. Isaac is an amazing man. Isaac has had a portfolio career. He's been a history teacher. He's been a record executive. He's been an entrepreneur. He is an entrepreneur. He's worked in schools. He has, as a program officer for the Bill Melinda Gates Foundation, has given away millions of dollars for educational purposes. He is awesome, and he's really funny, and I'm happy to call him one of my brothers. So Isaac Ewell, welcome to King Crush Thursday.
Hey Val, welcome. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here. That was a great introduction. I appreciate that. That was really nice.
Cool.
I didn't pay you.
No payment.
I didn't give you that. So, I'm honored to be selected to be interviewed for King Crush Thursdays.
Awesome. Well, we're so happy to have you here. And what I did not say just a minute ago is that these, I'm asking the same 6 questions, and the goal is to create a repository of questions and answers. And my goal is beyond this time period, whenever you're seeing this, that perhaps there is at some point in the future, there may be someone who's interested in hearing what Black men have to say. Well, instead of us pontificating about what Black men think and do, I wanted to hear directly from you. And by creating this repository, these same 6 questions, let's say there's a young king who comes along who doesn't have positive male role models in his life. He can come to this and listen to these same questions answered by different men, and maybe he can find some mentoring in that. Maybe there's someone who's just really interested in the mind of a successful Black man. What does that look like? What does that sound like? Well, they can come in and hear. And so I'm really excited again that you're here. When we get started with our first question, which is, what does manhood mean to you?
Yeah, that's a great question. Can I say something, Val, before I answer that? I wanted to say I really appreciate you launching this platform and this kind of questionnaire focused on Black men, and asking the questions. When you were telling me about it, and then when you sent it to me and I read, I love your intentionality around this. And like this, to me, like, it's so interesting. When I was growing up in Trenton, New Jersey, I would stop Black men mainly if I saw them driving a nice car, or if they looked professional, just to ask them what they did for a living. And I literally kind of like used that data. It was in an IGA parking lot on Hermitage Avenue in Trenton. And partly that's kind of how I decided. Most of the guys that I spoke to at the time, the majority of them were lawyers, right? So that I literally used that data to say, okay, I'm going to law school. Although I ultimately didn't go, but again, back to why this is important. Had I had this repository of information of men that I could pull from, and I kind of created my own little life hack around, doing this decades ago. And I think it's such a brilliant idea to create something that young brothers can pull from, especially if they don't have a lot of these guys in their communities or their neighborhoods to talk to, and it'll live, digitally, and they can access it. I love this idea. I really, and I think it'd be helpful for, even though I'm a father and I'm active in my children's lives, I think it's really healthy for them to hear other men's voices as well. So this is dope.
Thank you.
So what does manhood mean to me? I think the first thing I think about when I think about being a man is about responsibility. Like,
Mm.
I was raised by a single mother, Black woman, but I also was really raised by both of my grandmothers as well. So I was always jokingly say I was raised by like three crazy Black women, who who loved me to death, but also had very high expectations.
Mm.
And so at a very early age, I was responsible for helping my mom in the house, not just chores wise, but like I'm talking like I had bills that I was responsible for at a very early age. So, and I recognized that I was precocious in a lot of ways because I didn't mind
Mhm.
helping out, or I saw that as my role because my mom had not had the best relationships with men, and I
Mm.
knew what, based on the types of relationships she had with men, I knew what I didn't want to be. I still didn't know exactly. I didn't have like a great example of who I wanted to be, but I knew
Mhm.
what I didn't want to be. Right. So
Mhm.
my mom was dating dudes who were, and not interestingly enough, not my dad. So my dad and
Mm.
my mom were married, and my dad is a
Mm.
dope dude. His picture's back here somewhere. My dad is my dude. Like, I loved him, but he and my mom married before they had me. My sister, I have an older sister who's a year older than me, and my dad had a heroin addiction.
Mm.
So right when I was like maybe one or two, my mom left my dad. But they never, like, he had his addiction, he had his issues, but other than that, he was just like this amazing dude. So he wasn't beating or cheating. Like, he wasn't, he had his addiction issues, right? Um, but the men that my mom chose after that were both
Mm.
emotionally, physically abusive, and just not good guys. And I saw that and I witnessed it, and it just kind of clearly, I was very clear about what I didn't want to be. So I
Mm.
always lead with responsibility because I learned at a very early age about being responsible,
Mhm.
about taking care of my loved one. So being a responsible father to me is also manhood. Whether you're with your partner or not, or the person that you had the children with, I think being a responsible um, father is manhood. I don't care where you are, where you live, if you're away from your children. I have friends who live out of the country whose children live in the US, but they're still actively involved. Whether
Mm.
that's, and I don't mean just like by sending money, but also like checking in with them, FaceTiming when they come to the country, spending very focused time. So I think responsibility, taking care of your children, and I love the fact that you also kind of couch this by saying it's not about what we do. Because I
Mhm.
really kind of, cringe at that because I try not to ask that question of people,
Mhm.
because I don't think it tells a lot about who you are.
Right.
Right. I think that more about what you're about. Like, I remember, Most Def has this dope line. I don't I don't care what kind of brand you are. I'm more concerned what kind of man you are. And
Mhm.
so that's, I just try and live, but I do try and live my life in a lot of ways as if I were a brand. Like, and I don't mean
Mhm.
that in a superficial way, but I always say this to my sons. What are the three words you would want people to say about you if they said your name? Think about it. And I was like, and I was like, do you want them to say that you're rude, you're disrespectful? Like, my sons can rattle off those things, and I'm because like it's sort of like Apple. When Apple is a brand, right? And people think
Right.
about Apple,
Right.
Apple. If anything happens negative with Apple, they're going to do damage control, right?
Right.
Or any other. Think about it. Any multinational brand, they have three or four key words that they want people to become recognizable with their brand. They want them to become, and so for me as a man, I want responsibility. I definitely want compassion. That's one of the things that I really think about as men, just trying to be really compassionate. Like, um, and I kind of link compassion and some like, and not just compassionate to others, but also self-compassion, which
Mhm.
I've struggled with for a long time. Like, I was
Mhm.
so hard on myself and set such high goals. I sometimes didn't give myself a break when I didn't maybe achieve that goal.
Right.
So I
Right.
think compassion is a very important thing,
Mhm.
and vulnerability. So
Mhm.
manhood to me is really like vulnerability. Um, I Yeah. So those things are extremely important. I'm gonna send you a picture of how I bought. I'm gonna have my sons bring them up, but yeah. And so anyway, I'm kind of rambling, but I do think that responsibility, vulnerability, compassion, um, those are keys for me around manhood. I
That's
think if more men were vulnerable, I think we'd have less rage, less anger, less violence.
right.
I think, but I don't know that society sets it up for Black men to be vulnerable, right? So I think it's a double-edged sword. It's a really hard place to be sometimes. How do you survive? Like I grew up in Trenton, New Jersey, like being vulnerable could get you, and there's a lot of other brothers like me who grew up in these communities where vulnerability is seen as weakness or softness. And if you're weak or soft, you get eaten, and so, but as I've matured and I've gotten older and I've, been able to live in a neighborhood where I'm not always looking on my back and I can kind of relax and I, develop friends outside of communities I've grown up with, I realize, oh, not every community is like that. And so I've tried to raise my sons with a level of compassion, vulnerability, creating a space where they can kind of share their fears, their concerns, and be supportive. So I think that's a big piece.
Awesome. Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you.
So who and or what is important to you?
Who or what is important to me? If there's a question I probably think about daily, is that first, my grandmother. So I have this amazing grandmother. But it's my maternal grandmother. And like I said, I was raised by 3 crazy Black women. So although my dad was off doing his thing and he wasn't really in the picture for the majority of my life, his mother, my paternal grandmother, I don't know if we would have survived without her. She was a hustler. I really get my entrepreneurship from my paternal grandmother. She was a hustler. She had multiple jobs and she was a high school dropout, but she figured it out. She was the manager of this company called Trenton Window Cleaner, which was a janitorial service. So literally everybody in the community who had a high school diploma, she employed them. My mom worked for her. My other grandmother, my maternal grandmother, who's still living. My paternal grandmother, unfortunately, is deceased now. But she was a hustler and she always had resources. She had multiple revenue streams and she bought a house in a part of Trenton that used to be known as Doctors Row, where doctors bought houses, right? And but she was so my paternal grandmother, but and my mom is deceased, but my maternal grandmother is still living. And so I check on her daily. And she is 88 and she is still sharp and still with it. And that's my baby. And it's funny, I'm interviewing her now, during quarantine. It's a project I've been wanting to do for years and I just kept putting it off. And now I can't go anywhere. She can't go anywhere. And so I'm interviewing her, trying to do a better job of capturing the family history. Because embarrassingly enough, I don't know as much as I should. And so I wasn't listening as intently as I should. And so, so I'm doing that. So my grandmother, I think about her often. I think about her a lot too, because she and my mom used to talk every day. And my mom has been deceased now for 3 years. So she doesn't have her anymore. And so I know she's lonely and she's easy to talk to too. That's the other thing. She's a lot of fun. But I know she doesn't have a life partner. Right. And she lives in an assisted living building in Philly. And right now, given quarantine, we can't visit her. Right. So, and she can't leave her apartment because she doesn't live in one of those assisted living facilities where they eat communal. So she has her own food to cook. So she doesn't have a reason to go outside of her apartment. So I talk to her. So that's what I think about daily. Then of course, my wife and my children and daily. And every day. I've been really fortunate and blessed to be with my wife for this May. The next month will be 26 years.
Wow, that's awesome.
Isn't that crazy? Next, and that's not actually our anniversary, but we started dating the spring of 1994.
That's awesome.
And we dated for 6 years, and then we'll celebrate our 20th year of marriage this September. And
congratulations. That's
thank
awesome.
you. Thank you, Naz. Though I feel extremely fortunate. So Anika and the boys, and I have 15-year-old twins who I'm really enjoying watching. I know teenage years can be difficult for a lot of parents, and we have our challenges. But these dudes they're dope. I mean, I really, they're hard workers. They're very respectful. Outside the house mostly, right? So you know how that goes, and
right.
You have to remind yourself they're supposed to be their work selves with us. So but what the community says is that they're respectful, they're upstanding, they're polite. Those things matter, how they behave in your absence. And so we really are blessed. They're doing well in school. And then I have our oldest son, Shamar, is 30. He'll be 31 in December. And so we think about him. I think about him all the time. He was my first baby. I had him while I was still in Morehouse.
Mm.
And this is I love that dude so much. He's so special. He is a single father now of two daughters.
Wow.
Two daughters, and he's doing a phenomenal job. I mean, he's doing a phenomenal. And I think about those jokers. Those my Anika said, she's like, those girls have me. They literally have me. Right, they own me. I'm gonna be clear. They own me. Val. They own me. I mean, like, and when I share, I had to send you a video. They own me. I FaceTime with them weekly, since I can't see them right now.
Right.
And those are, I go hard. I went hard. I feel like at every phase of my development where there was a new milestone, like when I got married, when I knew I wanted to marry Anika, I knew I had to tighten up, get your finances in order, all that stuff. Then when Anika and I said we were having planned for a family and we're buying a house, you tighten up. You have these moments where you just got to continue to refine your process and tighten up.
Mm-hmm.
And since these girls are here, like when Che and Marley were born, of course, boom, 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 tighten up. But then like these jokers, my granddaughters, I'm just like, I am in love with them, and they are funny.
Oh,
And I used to, one of the most beautiful words I used to hear was daddy, and now like pop. Like I'm telling you, those they got. I'm gonna tell you, like it is so funny. Those are my girls. So yeah, I feel really fortunate, and I'm super proud of my son Shamar. He's a great. He's definitely developing into a great young man. So
that's beautiful.
But those are the folks I think about, and on most days. And I have to say this. I have a cousin. I have a brother and a sister too that I'm really close to. But I have a cousin named Aisha, who's like a sister to me. And I think about her a lot because I don't know if it's serious about. She's like so I think about my grandma. Remember I told you I talk to my grandma every day because my cousin Maisha, we lost my nephew a couple of years ago. He actually was one of our models at the Barnes for a couple of events. He's been at the Barnes a few times, and he was suffering from mental health issues. And my cousin Maisha, that was her baby son. He was a senior at LaSalle on a track scholarship. Beautiful kid, smart kid. I mean, like, and just had his challenges. And so she stayed with us for a few months after he passed. And so, and he was very close to my grandmother as well. So my mom and my nephew, when they both were deceased, my grandma was so depressed and sad. So that's one. So I check on my grandmom and my cousin Maisha a lot because I can't even imagine what it would be to lose a child.
Right.
And both of them, my grandmother has lost her daughter, my mom, and my cousin Maisha has lost her son, Zaki. So, I think about them daily. So.
Real losses.
Oh, no, thank you. Yeah, thank you.
So how is it that you want us to see you?
That's another great question. This is something that I've been saying. I told on my tombstone, I literally have been telling Anika this for like, I don't know, 15, 16 years. All I want etched on my tombstone is his intentions were good. And I just like, I mean that, like, we all make mistakes, but like when you like, I never ever walk out saying I'm gonna do something wrong. I mean, my intentions are normally really good. I'll make mistakes, you know what I mean? I may be a little heavy-handed with my response. I may be, I'm definitely considered, Anika said, I'll say passionate. She's like, you crazy. But I'm like, tomato, whatever. But yeah, my intentions are good. Like I really genuinely want, at the end of the day, I want people to see, and not even at the end of the day, currently, like I'm a hard worker. My intentions are good. I really believe my currency is people. Like I love people. I believe that's my lifeblood, connecting with human beings. Like I was put here to work with humans and human beings. And that's my currency. Like I realized at a very early age, I wasn't gifted athletically. I couldn't sing, I couldn't, I wasn't going to be the next, Bobby Brown, Ralph Tresvant, you know what I mean? Not that I didn't try. And but that just wasn't my gift, like singing, dancing, or playing app. But I definitely realized that I was able to connect with people across difference at a very early age. I don't care ethnically, social class, race, sexual orientation, whatever. I just have always been able to develop friends and keep and maintain friends. And that, yeah, my intentions are good. I think that's how I want people to see me. I don't know if that's answering the question.
Yeah, it does. It is. Yeah, absolutely. There's no wrong answer. It's your answer.
Yeah, and I think definitely as a response, I think at the end of the day, I think I've been viewed as a good son. That was very important to me, being a good son to my mother and my father. A good husband, a great father. Like those things are very great grandfather now. Um, those things really matter to me. Being a solid family man and a really good friend.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah.
That's awesome. Excellent. Excellent. So, what is your epic dream?
My epic dream. It's a really great question. So I write this. I do a gratitude journal every morning, and I meditate. And one of the things that I say to manifest is, I want to do work. Well, here's what I say. I want to be paid extraordinarily well. Let me start with that. Yeah, I want to be paid. I don't even say it like this. I say I am paid extraordinarily well, doing work with people that I love, for communities that I care about, that make a positive impact. And literally, that's like my mantra. Like I want, and I'll help people live on purpose. It's kind of, I have it here on my phone, and I say it repeatedly. But yeah, that's how I live it. I want to do work. Really want to do work with people I love. I've been fortunate. One of my best jobs I had was for 8 years when I was doing the work with the Gates Foundation. I was creating schools around the country. So one, I was doing work. I was creating schools in low-income communities of color, specifically Black communities. I worked for an organization called the Black Alliance for Educational Options, which is we were clearly about for us, by us. The way we got the money from Gates was Howard Fuller. Got a shout out to Howard Fuller. He's a beast. He's an icon in the school choice movement and just in general. And, legend has it that Howard basically stepped to Tom Vander Ark, who was then the president of the Gates Foundation. Like, yo, Tom, what's up, bro? You giving out all this money to white folks to create schools in black and brown communities. You ain't getting no money to Black organizations. And Tom was like, oh shit, okay. And then so Howard, that's how we got the money, and we had this multi-million-dollar grant to create schools around the country. And I've always said that growing up in Trenton, New Jersey, I went to the 3,000 person high school. You know what I mean? And Trenton, New Jersey, and that was the only option I had. My mom couldn't afford to send me to private school, so one of the things I loved about that job that I had at Bayo is I had this money to go out and to create these small project-based learning schools, kind of innovative schools for kids who wouldn't survive in a 3,000 person school, right? Needed like a 300-400 school, 300 person school, right? Where they needed the attention from a teacher and small classroom size. So that was that opened my eyes to the possibilities. So I was literally living on mission, doing work, and I got to work with a great team who started out as consultants and then became friends and family. Camilla Green, who's 77, she was I'm the godfather of her grandson now. Tony Simmons, who's a co-director of HSRA, he's my brother. I'm helping him open a school in Atlanta and LA right now. My kids see him as Uncle Tony. His daughter sees me as Uncle Isaac. Sam Seidel, who I think you met Sam. So Sam is one of my best friends and business partners at Onehunted, right? And he's at every milestone birthday I turned 50 later this year. We're currently planning my 50th. He just got engaged. We were planning his bachelor party, but COVID shut. But my point is, I literally living on purpose. And so I've been able to, obviously, I get to work with beautiful human beings like yourself now, Kathleen, Tom Collins, who I've been texting with. But no, I'm living on purpose, and I feel, so living an epic life is around, money is important. So let me be like, just in order to take care of my family, I got these grandbabies too. Right. But yeah, so that's living an epic life, is doing work that positively impacts my community in a very purposeful and intentional way. Being paid a decent wage or amount to do that, so that I can then provide for my family in ways that I wasn't able to provide, but also working with people I really care about and like. That motivates me, especially smart people, and so I'm launching a new podcast too, so we'll talk about that too. So which is also another opportunity for me to work with somebody I care about and interview people like yourself.
Oh, that's awesome. That's really awesome. Excellent.
Am I answering your questions, Val?
Yes. Oh, absolutely. Yes, absolutely. Isaac, this is great. This is great. So my fifth question is, who are you?
I am Isaac Ewell. First and foremost, I have to say it, from Trenton, New Jersey. I rep Trenton. Like, I just love Trenton, New Jersey. And then I say that because I love it, but I think it's helped make me who I am. And I've been able to navigate the world largely from lessons that I learned from Trenton. And I jokingly say, because if Anika was here, she's a couple times when I've gotten worked up when we've been out places, she'll rub me on my back and be like, okay, baby, you're not in Trenton anymore. And I'm like, well, Trenton is still in me. So you better, but nah, I say that in a like very loving way. So I'm from Trenton, Black man all day. I'm culturally aware. I am a husband. I'm a father. I'm a son. Even though both my parents are deceased, I still live my life like I don't want to ever do anything that would embarrass my mother. Mm-hmm. Out in the world. And now I have the same thing with my wife and children. Mm-hmm. I don't want to ever do anything that's going to embarrass my wife and children. So I'm a stand-up dude. I'm reliable. I'm responsible. I'm confident. So that's, yeah. I'm a dope dude. I mean, Val, I want to say that.
That's why you are a dope dude.
I'm humble, but I'm really like, I feel good about myself. You know what I mean?
You should. I believe everybody should love themselves. Yeah. You can't love other people, I believe. If you don't have self-love, you don't have yourself. It's really difficult to love other people, truly love other people, because love is not emotion, it's action, right?
No,
love
it really is.
Is love is work, which is great because it's a verb.
It's a verb. That's exactly right. Yeah. And truth be told, I've struggled with that at times. Like, like I talk about pressures I put on myself, or, you've been an entrepreneur, sometimes, especially men in particular. I think I've had this conversation with men who are entrepreneurs, particularly men of color. Mm-hmm. When it gets tight, or a lot of us have been, there are a few things that we kind of measure ourselves by, and how much you earn is always been something I think society has set us up to. Right. How much money you have in the bank, or what's your credit, like those things. And when you're an entrepreneur, those things can take a beating. Right. And that's when you have to dig deep about and really figure out who you are. Back to what you were saying, right? Right. And find out what your constitution is. What grounds you. And so that's an entrepreneurship. Ups and downs of it have really helped me get more clear about what's important.
Yeah, no, that's really great. Yeah. So is there anything that you wish I would have asked you, or I should have asked you, that I did not?
I don't know. I don't think so. I mean, I actually love these questions. I love that you're doing this.
Excellent. Thank you.
And I know you know a lot of people. So if you ever have if you're ever looking for men to interview, let me know too.
Yes, please. I was going to say that to you at the end. So yes, please, sir. Yeah. I know out there in the audience, if there's someone that you think we need to hear from, please just hit me up, DM me, and send me their info, and we will get the ball rolling, because I want to talk to as many men as possible. There is no limit, as I see it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, Val, I can see you doing this. Is a dope idea. I mean, I just think it's really smart, and I think it has a life. Okay, really have a real life of its own. Yeah, I would love to have you on our podcast as well.
Cool.
So we have two. Can I tell you about this real quick?
Sure.
So the one podcast that I was talking about is the Keeping It 100 podcast, which you're familiar with my company, 100. Yes. And I'm a big podcast listener. And one of my favorite podcasts is How I Built This, which comes up.
Yes, it's so great. I learn so much every week. It's so great.
Really, let me tell you, me too. I love that show. But what motivated me was I listen to the show a lot, and then I hear the stories of those founders, and I can't always identify with them because a lot of them don't look like Val Gay or Isaac Ewell. So I said I wanted to launch something similar, but I think to be a founder over 40 or a founder of color, an underrepresented person, whether it's a woman or person of color, like I want to hear more of those stories, because I couldn't go to my mom and have her take some money out or equity out of her home, right?
Right.
Or
Right.
when we wanted to have our friends and family, shoot, Anika and I are normally the friends or family members that people come to borrow money, right? So it was a much different experience. And so we launched the Keeping It 100 podcast. And I remember Christina, who's like works for Sky Blue Media, the PR firm that represented us, when I was sharing with her our vision to have this kind of Keeping It 100 podcast, how I built this meets. And she's like, yeah, it sounds like how I built this meets Red Table Talk, right? Like, right. And so that's what we have there, right? Where we tell the truth. Like, we just keep it 100. Like, let's not lie. Like, it wasn't, not all about entrepreneurship let's not glorify it. Let's not romanticize it. Let's talk about it difficult. I want to know when, like some of my first bouts of depression and anxiety were with entrepreneurship, right? And we don't talk about that enough, right? Right. And let me tell you, one of the things that motivated me was Anika and I had this really beautiful conversation. It was a hard one. And I remember her saying to me, it was back and forth about whether I should go back and get a job or da-da-da. And she's like, if it's going to make you feel better, she's like, I want you to do what's going to. She's like, my concern is, yes, you go and get a job. The only reason I'm saying that is that I'm concerned about the emotional and psychological impact entrepreneurship is having on you. You're like normally like this happy-go-lucky guy, super fun dad. You're not like lately. You're not sleeping well. You're stressed. You're just not. And it was a loving thing for her to say. Appreciated that. But I was like, okay, this is another impetus, a reason for us to have these conversations much more openly, right? And also to demystify it. Like we can talk about the challenges of it. And so so we have that, the Keeping It 100 podcast, which I'd love to interview you for. And then during quarantine, my best friend and I, Val, who I think you met, Fanone, he's the one that lives in Kyoto. So he and I have been toying with, and so we've decided officially, I have a call at 5:30 with him. We're launching a podcast about, this is not the term, but this is kind of how we came with like ordinary people living extraordinary lives. But we didn't say it that way. It's kind of like regular motherfuckers living. So doing extraordinary shit. That's what we said. I'm trying to sanitize it for the, Val, can you edit that out now? Tell them that some of your friends like Isaac are kind of ignorant. But part of that is that Fanone is like this Black Forrest Gump, and he knows so many people, and I know a lot. So we were like, but also we have these very interesting people, and we feel like their stories again don't get heard. This isn't about entrepreneurship. This is more about, Fanone is from South Central LA. I met him at Morehouse. He went to Syracuse, then did a PhD at NYU, and now teaches in Kyoto, Japan, right? I'm from Trenton, Morehouse, Harvard, Gates. Like we have these people around us who are doing some dynamic things that we just don't think get amplified enough.
Right.
And so like you, opera singer, like you're multi-hyphenate. Like, you have this kind of, back to talking about a portfolio career, right? So, and we like, Fanone and I was like, part of it is, and this, I think you'll appreciate this, and then I'll shut up, is sometimes we celebrate the person who's mastered something, like Steve Jobs or Jeff Bezos, who've gone all in on something, and that's great. But then there are people like yourself who are curious, right? Who have multiple things that they're interested in and multiple things that they do well, right? And so, Fanone's always had this kind of a little bit of tension and anxiety that he never wrote his book, but he's become a damn master snowboarder, it's like, we're like, sometimes we get too caught up in celebrating people who are highly specialized and not celebrating those folks who actually aren't so clear about what they want to do, right? And have multiple interests.
Right. I think that is about not having clarity. I think it's about having having multiple interests, and I think we have, as a community, as a society, have been done a disservice with the term, jack of all trades, masters of none. Right. A master of none, meaning that is a bad thing.
That's exactly right.
Because we need specialists and we need generalists.
There we go. And,
it's the generalists that have been running that can run stuff and get stuff done, while the specialists really focus. And we can't have a world of specialists and we can't have a world of generalists.
That's right.
You know, it's like we can't have all men with no women. You
That's
know,
right. That's right. No, we can't. No, we cannot. Val. I totally double down on that last statement. Yes, I agree.
You know, but no, that sounds dope. I would love to participate in that. That sounds really interesting, and I can't wait to hear. Like, you know, I'm always inspired by other people's journeys and really how they built it. And it's true about that show. Although I love it,
Me too. Right.
there are many times I'm like, oh, okay, so how can I hack that?
Right. Right. Right.
Without, you know, my bar mitzvah or bat mitzvah.
Exactly. Yeah.
You know.
Exactly. So,
You know, I started from nothing. I just used my bar mitzvah money, you know.
Isn't that crazy? I started from nothing, right?
You know.
Yeah, Donald Trump got a small personal loan of $1 million from his
Right. Right. Yeah.
Why didn't you do that, Val?
Slacking.
You slacking.
Clearly.
Clearly.
So no, yeah, that sounds really dope. I'm really excited.
Nice.
And this is really, really wonderful. So we are actually at the end of this interview. And Isaac, I am just really excited and grateful for the time that you've given us. And I really appreciate just who you are in the world, how you are in the world. I appreciate, you know, I didn't say in the intro that, you know, you're a dope father and husband. And that's also how I know you. You're a board member. That's how we met, serving on Jill's board.
Oh, that's right. That's
Blues
right.
Babe. Jill Scott, I'm grateful. She brought to me like these amazing people. I got Isaac, I got Rita Scott, Aisha Winfield, like these Brandon Pankey. I got these, you know, Danielle Rivas.
Right.
I mean, we were tight. That was like
that was our crew. I missed those board meetings.
I do too. Who knew those were the good old days, right? You know, but I'm really grateful for you, and I just want to encourage you to let you know that we see you. I see you, my brother. I see you. I am praying for you. I love you, and I just want you to keep doing your thing. And you know, there is a whole community out there, even when you feel in your darkest days that you're alone. One, you know you're not alone because all you have to do is roll over and see your beautiful wife and like, okay. Or you walk down the street or walk down the hallway or hear your kids and you know, oh, I'm good, right? But just to know that you have this beautiful microcosm and you have your larger cocoon of friends, right. And then you have your acquaintances and people who've heard of you, and then there's the rest of the world who loves you. And I just want you to know that. And I'm so grateful to you, my king.
Oh, Val. You're so sweet.
And I thank all of you for watching, and I want you to stay tuned for next week where we will have another king. But in the meantime, please just take it easy, spread some love, and have a great day.
Val, thank you so much. Thanks for having me, Val.
Absolutely. Thank you, Isaac.